We here at the OHIO podcast are aware of the tragedy that has taken place a few nights before. As a former pastor, I have unique perspective when it comes to loss, hurt, and anger. I know no matter what is said tonight, our words cannot change what has occurred. That being said, tonight we hope to provide a distraction from this tragedy. Please try to enjoy tonight's show. And welcome back to the OHIO podcast, everybody. I am your host with the mostest, the Podfather, aka Buckeye Boggs. I am joined by my co-host Chris Wilds and our special guest this evening. He is a former All-American. He played in the NFL, and most importantly, he is a Buckeye. My friends, Tim Anderson is with us this evening. Tim, welcome to the OHIO podcast.
All right, thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to be here.
Tonight's episode is brought to you by A Place at Home Senior Care. If your loved one is recovering from a recent hospitalization, stroke, or fall, or living with dementia and needing support at home, A Place at Home Dublin provides home care supportive services like bathing, dressing, mobility assistance, and medication reminders, all in the comfort at home. Learn more at aplaceathome.com/Dublin or call 740-472-8181. Again, that's aplaceathome.com/Dublin or call 740-472-8181. We are the official podcast of Fansided and Scarlet and Game. If you do not like the way my face looks, I don't blame you. Neither does my ex-wife. You can listen to us wherever you download the podcast or go over to scarletandgame.com. We are also the official podcast, official Ohio State podcast, that is, of The College Huddle. Head on over to thecollegehuddle.com where you can find us and 80 of our closest friends from coast to coast podcasting with their favorite schools as well. All right, guys, diving into tonight's episode, when you have someone like Tim Anderson on your program, you're going to have to talk D-line. Now, I'm more of an offensive guy. I have an offensive line body, Tim. So I pay attention to those offensive linemen who were trying to block you in those days. But we're going to flip to the other side of the ball. We're going to talk about defensive line. And I just kind of want to start right here tonight before we get into the first topic. There's a lot of discussion this offseason with the Buckeyes on their defensive line. We are replacing 4 very talented, very experienced starters who we leaned on heavily defensively throughout that amazing playoff run. Jack Sawyer, JT Tumalal, Ty Hamilton, and Tyleik Williams. And we're going to have to try to replace all those guys. As a defensive lineman, Tim, someone who played at Ohio State, what do you think the discussions are with the coaching staff, the development of these players? What are some of the things that maybe we're not thinking of as fans or we haven't talked about when it comes to this defensive line heading into the 2025 season?
Well, I think the first thing that, unless you're like a crazy fan who really, really pays attention during a game setup, defensive line, unlike the offensive line, they're rotating quite a bit throughout a game. So yeah, you are replacing 4 starters and four very good starters at that. But you're rotating 6, 7, 8 guys through that D line on a pretty regular basis throughout the year. So even though you're coming in with, on paper, 4 brand new starters, a lot of those guys have a lot of reps under their belts. So there's not going to be a huge, I wouldn't foresee a giant drop off or anything like that, because it's not like, and I can see it in other positions where maybe the backups don't get the reps or experience in game settings like an offensive lineman. You're not rotating offensive linemen in and out of the game very often, unless somebody gets hurt or something like that, where you do that on defense. So those guys have game reps, game speed reps. They're going to be prepared. They go into games, as part of the game plan, understanding what's going on. The only difference is they're going to be on the field for the first snap now.
Yeah. Chris, do you have any idea? I was trying to put together tonight, working on our magazine, the depth chart for the defensive line, and I feel pretty confident that Kenyatta Jackson Jr. and Caden Curry are going to get the first snaps at defensive end. I feel pretty strongly that Houston's going to be the defensive tackle tonight as well, or this season as well. What are you feeling as far as the depth? I know that was a big concern for Ohio State fans, was the depth on the defensive line heading into this season.
Eric, you asked that of me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a little worried about depth, but I think that obviously getting the kid from North Carolina is going to add tremendous depth. He's a guy who I think can step in and, contend for starting snaps.
Bo Atkinson.
Absolutely. The move of C.J. Hicks down into the defensive end position, I think, is going to give a little more flexibility there. The ends, I'm not as worried about as much as I am the guys in the center. After Caden and Edric, I think we go to Will Smith and Jason Moore, who I think are capable, but they don't have as many of those game snaps. I think one of the big strengths that we saw out of this team, especially down the stretch, was how well we rotated. So are we going to be able to get those two guys in the mix, get them going regularly to get those snaps that Tim was just saying was so important, the fact that they got those game speed snaps. Because if we have those guys ready by the time we hit the meat of our schedule, I feel like there's not going to be a lot to worry about. There's not going to be a huge drop-off. But if we have to depend on Edric Houston and Caden McDonald in the middle too much early on, I worry about them getting gassed, especially with Caden, who unfortunately we've seen has had some issues with injury in the past.
Mm-hmm. Tim, what's the best way to build depth on a defensive line?
In practice, obviously recruiting. These guys that you out and recruit. I think sometimes that's something that does get talked about, but maybe gets overlooked a little bit. I mean, some of these guys. I mean, obviously, if you go to Ohio State, you're a highly recruited guy. They have high expectations of you. You were an extremely good football player in high school, and all of those things. But as any fan of any college team across the country knows, just because you come in as a 4 or 5 star recruit doesn't mean you're going to end up being a very good player, because it all comes down to development, and that's where we do have a huge strength with that guy that coaches our D line. One of the other concerns I have, obviously, we've got a new defensive coordinator, so hopefully things don't change too much with the defense as far as the style, the different terminology and vocabulary that they're using, so that the kids can kind of continue to play. I know when we had a change at a D coordinator position when I was in school, when D'Antonio came in, I remember that was something that they did. They kind of tried to. They looked at the vocabulary that we were using under Coach Puggage and kind of tried to use that same vocab to kind of help the transition into the new system. And that was a huge help in picking up the system. And it wasn't this, oh man, now we got to learn all these new defenses and all these different terms and different things like that. So hopefully, and obviously they've had all spring and winter. And, if they're anything like it used to be there, I mean, these guys should be in the meeting room throughout the week, watching film together, going over that type of stuff. We always did. I know everybody talks about spring ball and spring practice and all that, but that's a pretty small part of it. I mean, they should be getting together and working on things, doing walkthroughs on their own where they just call out different calls and, go through their steps of where they're going and things of that nature. Hopefully they've been doing that. I'm sure they have. That's obviously all outside of like coaching instruction, which I don't know what the rules are on that anymore. We had to do it on our own. Coaches weren't allowed to kind of organize that stuff. So, we do have a great D-line coach, arguably one of the best ones in the country. So developmental wise, I think that they're going to be good with probably the stuff that they're doing in the off season and things of that nature. But that's really where it's going to come down, is that how these guys have prepared since January, not right now, not this summer, but since January, basically as soon as the season ended.
Right. I think this is a good time to segue into our first topic. That was all just kind of off the cuff, but I got to ask this to you, Tim. I know that you obviously you made your name in football, but I believe you were a pretty doggone good wrestler too. And
Okay.
I believe you might even be coaching wrestling now. So I wanted to present this topic to you because you hit on it when you were on the Buckeye Lounge with TG and Sean. Shout out to those guys about how important wrestling was to your development. And I want to just kind of open up that discussion tonight and kind of let you take the floor and talk about your experience with wrestling and why you feel that sport really equates to the development of football players as well.
Yeah, it ties in a lot of different areas, actually. And I did wrestle. I started late, actually. I didn't start wrestling until I was 8th grade, I think was the first year I wrestled. I played basketball before that, and honestly, I wasn't very good. I was a young kid, and I was growing insanely fast. And anybody who's of larger stature as an adult understands that awkward, clumsy, doppy period of their life when they could barely walk without tripping on themselves because they're just growing so fast. And so I was kind of struggling in basketball, and I had some buddies that wrestled, and they were like, "Oh, come try this." And I was like, "All right." And so I went over, and I kind of liked it. So I only wrestled in 8th grade through high school. I was pretty good. A lot of it was more strength. I was just stronger than most of the other guys. But it helps with football in a lot of different ways, and which is one of the reasons why I kind of went to wrestling and kind of stuck with it. If you really watch the offensive and defensive lines play in a game, and then you put a side-by-side comparison of two good heavyweights wrestling, there's not a whole lot of difference between them. I mean, it's hand to hand. You're up in each other's face. You're chest to chest. You're pushing on each other. You're pulling on each other. You're moving your feet. You're doing all of these things. And a wrestling match really simulates that kind of one-on-one battle that you have in the trenches in a football game. So there's really nothing that prepares you, to play line like wrestling. So I encourage kids in high school all the time to, wrestle. Like even if you're not very good, it's still going to work on foot speed, foot movement, hand development, using your hands, your hips, your leverage, your angles, all those different things. And the other big aspect of wrestling that I think kind of gets overlooked a little bit or doesn't get talked about as much, unlike football, when you step out on that field, there's 10 other guys with you, and you're playing against 11 other guys. And if anyone who's ever been to a wrestling match knows, when you step on the mat, you're by yourself and you're wrestling one other guy. It's two people out there. It's a one-on-one battle. There's no one else that's going to come and help you out. You don't have a linebacker that's going to draw a block or anything like that. I mean, it's one-on-one, and it's competitive. It's tough. It's one of the most grueling sports that you can go through. I fell in love with it after I got done playing in the NFL. I ended up as a wrestling coach. I still coach it now. This will be, I think, my 14th or 15th year coaching, something like that, this winter. So, and I got probably a couple more years. My son is going to be a junior in high school, so I'm probably going to see him out 2 more years, and then I'll probably kind of step back from it.
I didn't know you had a son who was a junior this year. So talk to us a little bit about him, man. Is he is he strictly wrestling, or does he play football as well? And
he does not play football. He tried it when he was younger. He tried it a couple of different times. It was just, he kind of came to me. He played in 8th grade, and he came to me like midway through the season. He's like, "Dad, I just don't really like this. It's just not my thing." And I said, "All right." I said, "You got to finish the season." I said, "You started it. Like, you're not quitting." I said, "But you got to finish the season." I said, "And that's fine. Then don't play next year. That's okay." So he really got into lacrosse around that time, and he was a big lacrosse, like he's really into lacrosse. Um, and then his freshman year, he comes to me. He's like, "Hey, I think I'm going to wrestle." And I was like, "Buddy, I'm like, wrestling is kind of a sport you really should have started when you were a kid. Like, it's a really hard sport to pick up as a high schooler. Like, you're going to be years behind people." And he's like, "Oh, I'm going to do it anyway." So he's a good kid. He works hard, but lacrosse is probably his biggest sport. Which is kind of weird because, I mean, he would be a hell of I mean, my kids, he just turned 16 a few months ago, and I don't think he's quite hit 6'7" yet, but he's pretty close to being 6'7". I mean,
Wow.
he is a monster of a kid. I mean, he's 200. I mean, he's skinny. He's like 230, 240 pounds, but he's, every bit of 6'6". And like, of course, everybody meets like, "Oh, you play basketball?" No, I'm like, "Oh, all right." Like, I kind of feel like he probably should, to be honest with you.
Chris, you guys any wrestling questions? I know
Yeah,
you got some
actually,
WWF wrestling questions.
That's not wrestling. That's entertainment.
sports entertainment, Eric. So, Tim, I got to ask, you talked about kind of the physical toughness that's developed, some of the skills you learn by wrestling. Talk to me a little bit about the mental toughness that you gain by wrestling. Do you get more of a mental toughness with it being that one-on-one direct competition, in your opinion, or did that anyway improve your mental toughness as you headed into football as well?
Yeah, and I should have brought that up because that is a big part of it. It's huge on that mental aspect because it's in combination of being that one-on-one on the mat, things of that nature. But practice is a grind, and I mean, if you come into a good wrestling program's practice, you practice for 2 hours and 15 minutes, and you practice the whole time. I mean, there's no real breaks. Football practice, you go out, you do individual drills, and then you kind of go do your 7-on-7 and inside drills, and then you kind of go to team. Well, you run one play for 10 seconds, and then you stand around for 20 or 30 seconds before you run the next play. So there's a lot of downtime where you're kind of standing and you're kind of doing the talking and the mental aspect of it with football, and I think with other sports. Whereas with wrestling, when you go in that room and practice starts at 3:00 or whatever it is, you are wrestling and you are grinding for the next 2 hours. Like, there's no breaks. There's no like, "Oh, hey guys, okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break now. Just kind of sit back." And like, no, that doesn't happen. And so you are pushed to that breaking point and beyond. And I know for me personally, when I was in high school, they brought in a coach. His name was Ray Long. He was a former athlete at our high school. He was a state champion wrestler, went to the University of Findlay. I think he was, a 2 or 3-time All-American there as a linebacker, but probably one of the best athletes I had ever been around. And he came into that room, and there's no other way to put it. He beat the ever-loving shit out of me every single day for 2 hours. And he did. And he did this for multiple years to me. And he sat there and he laughed, and he would, and it was like I was doing everything in my power. And I'm a highly recruited athlete. I'm one of the best wrestlers in the country. I'm one of the best football players in the country in high school. And this guy is laughing at me, just tossing me around like a rag doll. You want to talk about breaking someone mentally. And I say that in a good way, because then when I went to college, I got into camp, and anybody who, well, I guess we'll take Jeremiah Smith out of this equation, but most freshmen, when they come into a program like Ohio State,
Right,
it's a wake-up call. Like, all of a sudden, you're not the big fish anymore. Like, you're getting beat around pretty bad. Like, you used to never lose, and now you're losing every rep. So that's a tough thing to deal with on the mental aspect. And I think a lot of guys do break at those points where, like, I had great training going from high school. So to me, it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, yeah, I was struggling, but hell, I just spent the last 2.5 years getting my ass kicked by a guy that was 6-7 years older than me. So I'm getting beat now by guys, a couple of years older than me. Well, I can handle this. This isn't that big of a deal. And as a coach, I've brought that same kind of approach in that Ray Long brought to me. And I basically go in and I just beat the ever-loving hell out of the kids for 2 hours. But it makes them tougher. In those matches when, it's tied up, or you need that final takedown in that last 15 or 20 seconds. My guys are good. They feel good. They've got the energy. They've got the stamina. They're ready to go. It's not a pressure point for them. And I know one of my former wrestlers actually went to Kent State to play football. And oddly enough, I remember they were probably 2 to 3 weeks into camp, and I get a phone call from him, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Like, how's camp going? And he just started laughing. He goes, like, man, coach, he goes, you should see all these guys. Like, the guys are crying, they're breaking, like they can't handle this grind. And I'm just sitting here laughing. I'm like, this is nothing compared to my high school practices when my coach beat the hell out of me. And we had a funny conversation about it, but like, it made me feel good that I prepared him on that mental aspect to compete at the Division I college level like I was prepared. And anybody who goes through that wrestling mentality, they are, I think, more prepared and better equipped to handle the difficulties and the struggles that you're going to deal with when you get to college and play football.
Who was the toughest? I guess when you were at Ohio State, if you would have wrestled anybody, I'm sure you guys wrestled for fun a little bit. Was there anybody who could compete with you?
On our team, wrestling wise, no, probably not. Not realistically. There were a couple of guys that did wrestle, like Alex Stepanovich wrestled in high school. He probably would have been the toughest match. I was only a year older than him. I was a 2-time state champ. He was a runner-up my senior year, and then he won it the next year. And he was a year behind me in school. He probably would have been the closest match. I think him and I would have had probably a pretty good match. But it was kind of funny. My freshman year, we were not very good. Like, we went I want to say 6-6. It was like 1999. We weren't very good. We didn't play in a bowl game, and they actually called me to come wrestle because they had an opening at their heavyweight spot, and the wrestling coach called and was like, hey, why don't you come over and wrestle? He's like, we don't want you long term. We just want you for one season. We just got to fill this gap. We got a guy waiting in the wings. He's just not quite ready or whatever. And Coach Cooper was not a fan of that idea. He said no. And then I went to one of their first duels, which was against Minnesota. And I was glad he said that because their heavyweight was a guy named Brock Lesnar. And that dude stepped up. And I was like, whew, I think I made a good choice.
By the way, have you seen Brock Lesnar's daughter?
I did actually.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
I don't know why, but I've really been into the spring college sports, the baseball, the softball. I watched the track and field. I think that was last weekend. I was watching those, their championships. It was 4 nights or something. Like prelims were Thursday or Wednesday and Thursday. Championships were Friday and Saturday or something like that.
Yeah, she looks like daddy.
She does.
Female form. Here's a great wrestling question from the chat. Our buddy Sean Strock, you know him.
Yeah.
He says, asked him if he ever got to wrestle Luke Fickell when he was at Ohio State. Now, Luke would have been graduated. I don't know. Was he on the coaching staff or was he someone?
Yes, he was. He was a grad assistant my freshman year. And then I want to say he was there as well my second year. And then he left, I want to say my junior year because he had to go get some experience elsewhere. So he went to Akron for maybe a season, and then Tress brought him right back. So he was on the coaching staff pretty much the whole time I was there. No, I never did wrestle him. Rumor had it though, he was kind of the big reason why I got recruited by Ohio State. The rumors I heard when I got down there was that he was actually at the state tournament my junior year. Because he had a cousin wrestling or something from DeSales. That's where he's from and went to high school at DeSales. And his cousin was a high school wrestler. And he was there watching him and happened to see me wrestle a couple of matches at the state tournament and ended up actually winning it that year. And because oddly enough, within a few days, I started getting phone calls from Ohio State right away. So it kind of timing all matched up a little bit. And oddly enough, I was just joking with him. We were texting about it back actually in March, I think right around the state tournament time. And I think I could have taken him. I don't think he could have handled my size because he was he was arguably probably one of the best heavyweight wrestlers we've ever had in the state of Ohio, in all fairness. And he was a little bit older and a little bit skinnier. My high school self versus his high school self, no, I probably would have got my ass whooped. But he was a freak. I mean, you can get on YouTube and watch some of his matches. I mean, he destroyed dudes. He was so fast and quick, it was ridiculous.
I think we need, Dan's been talking about these unsanctioned wrestling matches, Chris, these unsanctioned shows or whatever. I think now we have an in with Luke here at the OHIO podcast. Our mutual friend, Ryan Miller, 2nd and 7, my cousin Ryan. You know him, Tim.
Yeah.
I think Ryan can get us Luke's number. I think we set up a 2nd and 7, the OHIO podcast fundraiser, and we get Fick and we get Tim on the mat.
I'm in.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was just going to ask a question of Tim, and that is this: in their prime, 3 wrestlers competing for the top spot: Fick, Tim Anderson, Tom Cousineau. Who walks away?
I'm gonna have to go with Luke. I mean, I can't pick myself, obviously.
Sure you can.
Was Kuz a wrestler?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was good.
Really?
He lost to Bob Golick in the state tournament.
Yeah.
Like Golick, like is in Mike and Mike
Bob
Golick.
Yes.
Oh. Well, the older brother.
Brother.
Mike's older brother, Bob, right? Yeah. Was Bob also an actor?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was on Saved by the Bell.
Yeah.
Saved by the Bell, the college years.
That's
right. I love that show.
They went to
college years to Saved by the Bell show.
Yeah, UCLA, right? Weren't they students at UCLA?
Well, I don't think they called it UCLA.
No, Notre Dame.
It was like UCA or UCL or something.
Yeah. The show, Chris.
Probably for copyright and stuff, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's funny. That's funny. All right. This was fun talking about that, but we want to provide a list tonight. It's been a few weeks since we've done a list. We've invited Tim on, and this is gonna be a lot of fun because it'll be interesting if Chris and I make it alive through the show tonight if we didn't rank Tim in the top 10. But we're gonna do our top 10 defensive tackles in Ohio State history. And how we'll do this is we'll start with Chris and we'll go counterclockwise. So Chris, you'll go first. Tim, you'll go second. I'll go third. Tim, did you provide a top 10 list?
Not a full 10, but here's
Okay.
the problem I had with this question.
Okay.
Because if you Google this, because I've done this in the past, and I've heard other podcasters and other like radio shows talk about top 10 and all this kind of stuff. Are we doing straight defensive tackles?
I did, yes. I did not include people like Vrabel, who played end tackle.
Because a lot of people include like the Bosas.
Yeah.
Those were ends.
Those dudes weren't D tackles. They were D ends. You can't compare. Yeah. Okay. If we're staying straight D tackles, I'm prepared.
Okay. All right. Let's do this then, because that's how we rolled. And I'll be honest, man, I actually learned about some Buckeyes I didn't know about through doing this, which I always love that. So it's one of the things I love to do. All right. So go ahead. Chris, you start at number 10. We'll work our way down to number 1. Chris, then Tim, then myself. Go ahead, Chris.
Number 10, I've got Tim Anderson. Great stats, and of course, national champion in 2002, Big Ten champion, contributed heavily in the 14-0 national title run. So I've got him in at 10.
Well, I didn't do them in order.
That's okay.
But here's one that a lot of people tend to forget about, and I think he was sneaky good. And maybe it's because I played with him. Ryan Pickett. Mm-hmm. I don't ever hear his name mentioned, but I think he was a hell of a defensive tackle for Ohio State. And maybe it was just because he was only there for a couple of years before he left for the NFL. But he was a hell of a good player.
Had a great career at Green Bay as well.
Yeah, I think he played maybe 12 years in the league or something.
Yeah,
wow. It was quite a while.
Yeah, he played 98 to 2000, was a first-round draft pick.
Yeah.
I actually didn't have him in my top 10, but I did have him written down as I have 5 other guys who I've written down. At number 10, I actually put Luke Fickell, and I know that I'm being a little bit of a homer here maybe with that, being 2nd and 7 supporter and knowing Fick. So, but the dude, I've also kind of included maybe a little bit of what he did for Ohio State beyond the field as well. But that '96 Rose Bowl team, man, is my one of my all time favorite teams. That's when I was baptized as a Buckeye, and so I got a soft spot there for Fick. So I put him at number 10. Number 9, Chris.
Number 9, I went with Adolphus Washington.
Ooh.
142 tackles over his career, 25 tackles for loss, 13.5 sacks. Great player.
I'd probably have Hankins.
Okay.
Jonathan Hankins.
I went with Cameron Hayward. Dude and here's a great question. Let's segue that. Is he a Hall of Famer in the NFL?
I think he is.
Yeah.
He's played.
And that hurts for me to
say
as a Browns fan. That hurts.
Well, I think I agree. He's played for a really long time, and for the vast majority of those years, he has been a very impactful player. He's not the showiest player because I know a lot of other guys on their defense over the years have gotten the hype and the attention and stuff like that. But I mean, he's always been a dominant force in the middle for them. I mean, gosh, how many years has it been for him? It's got to be double digits.
Yeah. Oh no, he was drafted in
2010.
15 years, 7 Pro Bowls.
Yeah.
He's a 4-time first team All Pro Bowl, 17, 19, 21, 24. The Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year in 2023. I think that you have to take into account. I think he might be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. He's on my top 10 list, but he's higher than where we're at right now.
All right. Here we go. Number 8.
This is actually where I have Jonathan Hankins. Again, 138 tackles for his career, 16.5 for loss, 5 sacks, and who can forget the tremendous season he had in 2011 with 67 tackles, 11 for loss, and 3 sacks. Dominant run stopper. Didn't move too bad for a guy who was 320 either.
No. That is 100% correct.
Tim, you got another name?
Am I back up? Okay. I'm actually going with Hayward here.
Okay. I went with this fella named Tim Anderson next. I don't know if y'all have heard of him, but
I know you all are just trying to pump me up a little bit. There's no way I can be in anybody's
you just got done talking about how no one on the team could beat you in wrestling. I've got to put you in my top 10, brother. I want to get out of here alive. Chris, number 7.
This is actually where I have Cam. We just talked about it. Elite run stopper, the model of consistency, great leadership, big presence. I've got him in at 7.
I had Washington here.
Okay.
One of you guys already mentioned him.
Chris did, yeah.
Yeah, it was yeah.
All right. Here's one of these names I didn't know. Aaron Brown. Now, we're not talking about Aaron Brown, former co-host of the OHL podcast. Aaron Brown played from 1974 to 1977, was a unanimous All-American in 1977, was known as one of the toughest guys to ever play for Ohio State. So that was a new name for me. And so after looking at that and being a unanimous All-American I don't know, that probably wasn't as hard back then as it is now, because there's so many publications that have All-Americans lists. But that's who I went with here, was a name I didn't know about. And I enjoyed reading up and learning about Aaron Brown.
All right, we're up to what? 5?
6.
6.
Let me have Michael Bennett here. Again, huge career, national champion in 2014, Big Ten champion, 110 tackles, 31.5 for loss, 18 sacks over his career. Doing pretty good for himself as a lawyer and occasional radio personality now as well.
I got Hankins, Jonathan Hankins. I think he had a hell of a college career. I know he struggled early on in the next level at the NFL, but and I want to say with maybe the Cowboys, if I remember right, kind of ended up kind of resurrecting his career a little bit there towards the end.
Yeah. He was initially a Colt.
Number 6,
Yeah.
and Dennis is all over it here. Pete Kusick.
Yeah.
So another name that I didn't know a whole lot about. Played from 72 to 74. Another unanimous All-American, and he had a little bit better, I think, of a reputation than Brown as far as his name recognition and things. But I went with Kusick here. So Dennis beat me to it. He actually included him with Brown in his comment, which I thought was pretty interesting.
You know what? He should have been in my top 10. I kind of forgot about him. I should have had him in my top 10.
No worries, man. That's why we're doing this. Chris, no. Top 5. Here we go.
Top 5? Give me Tyreek Williams.
Really? That high?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, I'll tell you right now, I think he was as big an impact as anybody on that defensive line over the course, maybe more so even last year, but I think this year as well. 136 tackles, 28 tackles for loss, 11.5 sacks over his career. I'm giving it to him.
I had Bennett here, which I know we already mentioned, but I had him at that spot.
This is where I put Quinn Pitcock from 03 to 06, unanimous All-American, and just someone I loved the heck watching that guy play football, man. He was a lot of fun to play. That's where I put Pitcock, number 4, Chris.
I can't put anybody that has nipple rings in my top 10. Sorry, Quinn. I love you, buddy. Played together with you. Love you. But no, can't do it.
Cut that up, Chris. Cut that one up. Number 4.
This is where I have Quinn Pitcock at, Eric.
Oh, no!
And everything, but
Chris likes nipple rings. This show just went off the rails.
I had no idea about the nipple rings.
Oh, it's true. I saw him. Yeah, he had to put like little pieces of tape over his nips so they wouldn't catch on his shoulder pads.
So this was when he played.
Yeah.
Does he still got them?
I would assume so. I would assume. I tell you what, well, not to get off track, I actually hosted him on his official visit.
Ooh.
And there were some good stories with that one.
Interesting conversations there, huh? Aaron in the chat goes, pasties. Oh my gosh!
Went straight down the.
Hey,
maybe he doesn't want that to be public knowledge. Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
It is now.
If that's the case, I apologize.
Is this true, Chris?
I assure you, it is not.
Oh, okay.
I am strongly, and you can just ask my wife and my kids. I am strongly opposed to tattoos, piercings of any kind, anything that just.
No nip rings for the wild man. Okay, we got it. All right, number 4 for me. This is where I've got Bennett. You guys have all talked about him. National champion, great guy, heart and soul of the middle of that defense in the national championship team in 2014. So I got Bennett at number 4. Now, which means I'm wondering if we all have the same 3 in the top 3.
I'll tell you what, these top 3, I think it's a matter of order with 2 and 3. I think to me, number 1's definitive, but
okay.
Number 3 for me, I'm going to go with Bill Willis here. A guy who, was an anchor on a team that gave up only 8.2 yards per game, man. Or 18.2 points per game, rather. Even though defensive stats weren't really around at the time. 2-time champion, 2-way lineman, and he did it at what, 210 pounds?
They were a lot smaller back then, though.
Well, yeah, they were, but man, it's just, when you think about that as opposed to today's game, it just boggles the mind.
Yeah, I would agree with that one.
when you have your number retired in the shoe,
Yeah.
I mean, come on. In fact, the Block O jersey is in honor of him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, Willis all day long. That's who I got number 3. Number 2, Chris.
I got Jim Stillwagon. 259 tackles, though they're unofficial because they didn't really keep track of the records completely then. National champion in 68, Big Ten champion 68 and 69, Outland Trophy winner, consensus All-American, member of those Super Softs. Man, I've got him in it too.
So we differ here, but I'm guessing our last two are probably the same. I got Wilkerson here, Big Daddy.
Yeah, so I do as well. Big Daddy Dan Wilkinson is my number 2. As a kid, I got to see Big Daddy because Ryan was a freshman in '92. So '93, he had been a redshirt freshman in '93, and so I got to see Big Daddy up close, Dan Wilkinson, and that was like meeting a superhero for me, my little teenage self. So, and then of course I was a Bengals fan growing up too, and so he gets picked number 1 overall in the draft, in the '94 draft by the Cincinnati Bengals. And a lot of people don't know this, but his NFL career was actually pretty long. He might have not have lived up to the overall number 1 draft pick status, but he ended up playing for like 12 years or longer in the NFL, which is way, way above average for the league. So
yeah, the thing with, especially with D-line, I think that's a little bit different than more the modern day. I think the game was a lot different back then. I don't think, even if you take some of these freaks today and you put them back then, I don't think they're going to put up the numbers that they do. And I just think the game has evolved. You go back then, you ran the ball. Most teams ran the ball most of the game. Like, you weren't throwing. Receivers were getting murdered downfield. And I think the game. So I understand that I've heard people say that about him, but I look at the longevity of his career, and he dominated in the middle. It was kind of crazy.
Number 1, Chris.
Well, and this is where I got Big Daddy, and yeah, I think if you look at Willis, if you look at if you look at Stillwagon, the team accomplishments definitely were heavier on them. But individually, I just don't know if there was anybody more dominant in the middle than Big Daddy. He was such a rare mix, I think, of just speed, power, agility, for his size, that, I just felt like he was, to me, he stuck out as the most dominant guy I've ever seen play a defensive tackle.
I have Stillwagon at 1.
Me as well. I didn't obviously watch Stillwagon play, but I think when you think about the Super Softs, which a lot of people think is the greatest roster ever assembled by Woody Hayes, he was definitely, one of the biggest names on that list. And it's to this day, people still, the old timers, talk about Stillwagon. So I had him as number 1 as well. That was a lot of fun. And as Buck Vader says, we've had nipple rings and Saved by the Bell in the same show. Whatever's next here, I'm in for it.
Well, we still haven't had Dan.
No, he's been in the chat. They've been talking about him in the chat. So we will take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to turn it over to a Q&A with Tim. Guys, get your questions ready. I've starred quite a few of them that you've had in the chat already, so we will get to those as soon as we get back. We're going to take a 2-minute commercial break and be right back with you.
Hey, Buckeye Nation. The OHIO podcast is thrilled to partner with Export Mouthguards, the innovators redefining protection in contact sports. Introducing the Ninja Pro Mouthguard, the strongest and most advanced mouthguard on the market. Engineered by dental experts, it's designed to deliver elite protection with a sleek, low-profile fit. Made with carbon fiber and multi-layer construction, it's impact tested to keep you safe from even the hardest hits. But that's not all. The Ninja Pro is 3D printed for 100% custom fit, offering unbeatable comfort and security for any athlete. From football to MMA, dominate your game with confidence while safeguarding your teeth and jaw. Getting started is easy. Use our home impression kit to create your custom fit and enjoy prepaid shipping. It's protection delivered right to your door. Plus, with a 1-year warranty and 100% satisfaction guarantee, and proudly made in the USA, the Ninja Pro is your ultimate defense on the field or in the ring. And here's the best part. When you visit exportguards.com, use promo code OHIO at checkout to get 20% off your purchase. That's right, 20% off elite protection made just for you. Protect your game, protect your future. Choose Export Ninja Pro mouthguards, where innovation meets protection. Head to exportguards.com and use promo code OHIO today.
The OHIO podcast is brought to you by Mastermind. Mastermind specializes in 360-degree high-definition mobile video mapping, GIS integration, and traffic safety studies. Mastermind cares about traffic safety and keeping you safe on the roadway. Visit Mastermind at onlinemastermind.com. All right, and we are back. All right, let's get these questions I had starred here earlier that were from the chat. This one first from Andre. It's not really a question, but he wanted to thank you tonight. He says, can you please let Mr. Anderson know how much of a pleasure it is to have such a Buckeye legend like him with us tonight? So that one was from Andre Green. Appreciating you being here with us, buddy.
I just happen to be on a really good team.
Let's see here. Here we go. This was back when we were talking about development on the defensive line. This is from Troy. How much did going up against the Ohio State offense in practice help in that development?
A lot, especially for me, because there was a guy starting center for us at the time. His name was LaCharles Bentley. You may have heard of him. He was a pretty good player. So having to practice against him every day, those first couple of years in college, going up against centers from other teams, honestly, geez, it was easier to go against them than it was LaCharles. So, and again, I don't know how they do their practice structure now, but I know under Coach Tressel, like we would still do like ones versus ones. So like that was pretty common, like the first day of the week, because we would our off days were Monday, so our first day of the week was Tuesday, I think, if I remember right. I'm trying to remember it. And on that day, we would do ones versus ones. So like we would go in and I'd go against Mangold, I would go against Stepanovich and Adrian Clark and all those dudes in the middle. So yeah, that's a huge, especially when your offensive line is one of the better offensive lines in the country. Yeah, it's a huge part of it. Now, I don't, do they practice 1v1s during the week now? I have no idea. I haven't been back to a practice in, probably since Coach Tressel was still there, to be honest with you. But if they're still doing that, that is a huge part of the development.
This one goes right with that question from Buck Vader. I'm going to go ahead and grab this one now. Tim, who was the best lineman you went up against at OSU? You just mentioned quite a few of them.
I'll answer it from Ohio State. It would be LaCharles for sure. Like, not even a question. I mean, obviously there were some good ones. If I would have had the older Mangold, the senior Mangold, probably him, but I just had him when he was a freshman, so he was still learning. But as far as Ohio State offensive lineman goes, yeah, probably LaCharles.
Speaking of Mangold, is he a Hall of Famer?
Should be.
Yeah, I think so too. I agree with that. He was like he's in the Jets Ring of Honor, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so.
I think, yeah. I want to say last year maybe, or 2 years ago they put him in.
Yeah.
Within the last couple of years, I thought.
Right. I think he's a Hall of Famer. Sean Schrock, another one that's right in that same vein. Tim, what was it like tackling Maurice Clarett?
Difficult. I mean, he was and I know he got a bad rap with the way things ended for him in Columbus. But when he came in as a freshman, we didn't actually do a whole lot of live with him because when he came back before it was commonplace, he came for spring ball, which that was common back then for a high school kid to graduate early and come in for that spring session. But I don't remember the injury. I want to say he broke his wrist or something. He did something to his hand, so he couldn't even participate with at least contact wise in spring ball till maybe like the last week and a half. And then obviously in camp. And then once we got into season, we were still going live, but we weren't tackling. But he was so strong and powerful. Like, I mean, you better be ready to hit him when you went to go get him because he would have run you over. Even at 300 plus pounds, as strong as I was, he would have ran me right over. If you didn't get low and take him on, he was a powerful man.
Oh, Ryan Day's championship beard says, I'm curious if Jeremiah Smith will have a sophomore slump due to teams double and triple teaming him to take him away. Curious about that one as well, Tim. That's a little 2025.
Well, you know what? I don't like the word sophomore slump because to me that tells me he's struggling as a player. If you're getting double and triple teamed, this is where he could really grow on the mental side of it. Are you willing to take on those double and triple teams to open up your teammates to take advantage? Now, at the same time, those teammates, the other guys on the field, they've got to be prepared to step up and take on that role so that he does get, freed up a little bit here and there. I mean, he is going to get targeted, but then again, let's be honest. I mean, he got targeted last year. He was getting double and triple teamed, and he was still making catches. So it'll be interesting to see. I think they'll have to move him around. They're going to have to utilize him a little bit. I don't like the slump term, though, if that makes sense, because I don't think his quality of play is going to dip. I think it's going to be harder to get him the ball. I think teams are going to scheme to take him out of the equation and force Ohio State to beat them using other weapons. So I don't think he'll have the numbers, but I don't think his play is going to drop. Maybe that doesn't make sense, but
I think there's going to be about 7 other guys with big smiles on their faces if you decide to double and triple team J.J. Smith.
Yeah, I think Carnell Tate's draft stock may have just went up again.
Yeah.
Tim, this is from Aaron. Now that you are a little bit older, do you ever sit back and reflect on your career at Ohio State, and how does it feel to be a national champion forever?
I mean, yeah, I think about it from time to time. But I kind of say it jokingly. I mean, I was a good player. I mean, I started for 3 years. Like, don't get me wrong. But I think I was also a product of the people around me. I think we had a hell of a D line, not because of me, because of guys like Will Smith and Darian Scott and Kenny Peterson and, Simon. And I just, I think that, I benefited from that, having great linebackers. I mean, AJ Hawk was my linebacker. Like, how is it not good to be good in front of that guy? Mike Doss and Donnie Nicky in the back end, just to name a handful. So I don't feel like Ohio State would have won a national championship that year without me being there. So I don't feel like I was like that much of an impactful player. I think you two are crazy for putting me in your top 10. I think you just did that because I'm on the show tonight. But I do think about it, and obviously it feels good to think back, when I go to the stadium and I look up and I see the 2002 up on the stadium wall. Like, obviously it gives me good feelings and things of that nature. And it is special. I mean, there's not too many people that can walk around with a national championship ring on their finger.
Indeed. A couple more here. Chris, get a question ready. This one's from Tyler. He says, Tim, I have a question. If you were on the coaching staff now, what techniques would you be teaching the defensive line?
Hands. It's all about the hands. You can have get off. You can have all these fancy moves and all of these different things. If you don't know how to use your hands, though, you're going to struggle. You got to be able to get off blocks and things like that. You got to be able to pass rush, and it all kind of starts with your hands. And that would be, if I was a D-line coach, like that's primarily what I would be teaching and working on it is hand speed, hand techniques, things of that nature.
Chris?
All right, Tim. Coach Tressel, the legacy's still alive and well.
Steal my questions about Coach Tressel, you jerk.
Still alive and well in Columbus. What kind of impact did he have on you, not just as a player, but as a person? And do you still carry any of those Tresselisms around with you?
So funny. So yeah, he was a tremendous person. And I'm going to put Coach in that. He's just because I think being a better he was a great coach, but I think he was even a better person. He was always around. I know I had a couple of tough times when I was in college. In my personal life, I lost a really good friend. I know one of my good buddies passed away when I was in college, and when I came back, I was kind of struggling a little bit on the mental side of things. And I was back for maybe like a week after his death or something, and he called me in, and I kind of went into his office thinking, oh man, he's going to give me one of these, oh, you're going to use it for motivation, like crap speeches. And I wasn't in the mood to hear it. I walked out of his office an hour and 15 minutes later. The word football never even came up. Like he never mentioned it, nothing about using it. And so I think he was talking to me about where I was at, where I was struggling, what he could do to help me, move on from where I was and, those types of things. And those are the things that I remember. And he was so impactful. I'm a school teacher now, and one of the books that I have on my desk, I don't pull it out every day, but I probably pull it out 2 or 3 times a week. He used to do the winner's manual. I know there's a book that they published about it, but we had the winner's manual, and the one from my senior year, I still have it. And like I said, a couple days a week, 3 times a week, I'll pull that out and we would always do during camp. It was like, I think it was 5 minutes. It was like 5 minutes of quiet time or maybe 10 minutes or something. And there are 2 or 3 days a week when I get to school and I kind of get to my desk and get everything all going and ready for the day. Like I'll kind of grab that book and just shut my door and for 5 or 10 minutes, just kind of flip through and read stuff and kind of, take the things that he taught back then. And I still use them, and I'm 44 years old now. I mean, that's stuff that he was doing with us 20 plus years ago. And I am 20 plus years later, still using that stuff. And I even got invited to his little event last week. Couldn't go. It was my daughter's birthday, but now he's obviously lieutenant governor, and he still keeps in touch. Like he reached out when he got that position. And I don't know how the government structure works, to be completely honest with you, but whoever kind of manages his schedule or his events or whatever, like reached out and was like, hey, we got your number. We want your address. We want your stuff so that we can invite you to stuff. Like she's not going to know who I am. Like obviously he gave her my name and information and said, hey, this is a player, like get him on the Rolodex. Most people, I don't even know what that is anymore, but get him on the address book so that we could reach out and invite him to stuff. And I've been invited to a couple of things since he's taken that role. And that's just showing his impact. I played for him over 20 years ago. He could pretend like I don't exist and it wouldn't matter, but yet he still calls on those guys that he coached 30 years ago.
Yeah. All right. Bobby Mack wants to know, Tim, who was your best friends at OSU, and do you keep in contact with them today?
Yeah, it's hard, obviously, because we're all kind of spread out. The guys I probably hung out with the most in college, like Craig Krenzel, Ben Hartsock, Stepanovich, BJ Sander, who was our punter. Those were kind of the main guys that I kind of hung out with for the most part. We're still semi in contact, but obviously we've all got kids that are teenagers and involved in stuff. We all have jobs and things like that. So it's more of, a text here and there a few times a year type of thing.
This is a fantastic question. This is right up Eric's alley. Steely Matt wants to know, Tim, what is your favorite food?
You're going to be shocked by this. Sushi.
I am shocked by that. That is not what I expected.
And here's the crazy thing. So over the last oh gosh, I'd say 5 to 10 years. Um, and not to toot my own horn, but I've gotten pretty good at this. I'm a big barbecuer. I mean, briskets, pork belly. I mean, all of it. Like I got a smoker, and probably the last 4 to 5 years, I've really, really gotten into that, and I've cooked some pretty good stuff. But if I could sit down and you're like, "Hey, what do you want to eat?" I'd probably go sushi first. A
My
lot of
wife,
it, but
my wife and I are planning. We're getting ready to go on vacation. We're going to go to Maine for the first time. I am so stoked for lobster rolls. I've heard you've never had one till you've had one in Maine. That's kind of similar, I would say a little bit there. But my wife is chiming in with a question. She goes, "Tim, what do you teach?" She's a teacher.
I'm a social studies teacher at a high school near here. I teach everybody's favorite subjects of world and U.S. history. Every 15 and 16-year-old's favorite class.
Which
It was mine. I mean, I loved it so much I minored in it.
But you probably didn't like it when you were in high school, though. No kid does.
Oh, I did. I loved it.
Well, you're one of the few.
All day long.
You're one of the few. But I do enjoy it. It's good. I like it.
Ooh, good question, Tyler. Love this question. He wants to know what your thoughts were when Tressel first got hired after Cooper was let go.
I'm gonna be honest. I thought we made a big mistake.
Ooh.
Listen, I think a lot of Buckeye fans felt the same way. They may not admit it with what he has done since, but going back to however old I was at that time, you brought in a coach from Division I AA to coach Ohio State University.
Mhm.
Like, I knew he was a great coach. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, obviously, Youngstown, I grew up in Ohio. I've heard of Youngstown. I know he was a super successful coach there, but that's quite a jump. Usually you get, they're well-known coordinators or they've coordinated at, a high level. I mean, this guy was the head coach at division. Well, I don't know. What are they now? It's not Division I AA, but it's just the FCS, I think, maybe, or something like that. So when they first hired him, I'm like, oh, like, I don't know, does this guy really know what he's doing to go from that to, trying to build a program that's one of the better programs in the country? Because, I mean, don't forget, he got hired, 2001? It was just a few years before that. I think 98, if I remember right. They were like the number one team in the country under Cooper. And then we had a couple of bad years and Coop got fired. And it was like, man, like, is he really going to be the guy to get us back to there? And obviously he was. And he obviously laid the foundation for, we're still riding off of that, to be quite, in my opinion. But yeah, I was concerned when they first hired him. Now, those were put to bed pretty quickly with him. Once I got to know him and how he operated and things that we did, I thought that he was a good choice. But when I first heard it, that first couple of days, first week or two, I was like, oof, I don't know if this is a good choice. But obviously it worked out.
Indeed, it did.
Yeah.
I am a massive Tressel fan. He's probably my all-time. Him and AJ Hawk would be my two bucket list interviews if I ever get the opportunity to do them. My son is actually initials are AJ. After AJ Hawk, and of course, I literally want to be buried in a sweater vest. So that's my life, man. But I'm with you. When I was in college when he first got hired, and I'm like, I don't know who this guy is.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just one of those things. But boy, oh boy, I'm glad it all worked out. That's
and it did. And I think that's where, like, one thing. I know we're taking questions, but that somebody brought this up to me the other day, normally because they were talking about dynasties and like Alabama and stuff. I'm like, okay, but like they've struggled. You understand, Ohio State has been literally at the top or one of the top teams in the country for like 20 plus years now.
Oh,
like we had one down year when all that stuff, the Tattoo Gate and stuff came out, and Luke Fickell took over. Like like that was kind of a crazy year. But you pull that 1 year out. Like, that's over 3 head coaches now. in that time period too. So I give Tress a lot of credit for kind of getting that ball rolling and getting Ohio State to kind of where it is now, to be honest.
Every Division I program in the last 80 years has had a dip where they weren't good for a period of time, except for Ohio State. We've had a season here or there where maybe we were 500 or just under 500, but we always bounce right back. And we've never had that extended dip. Even Alabama, I remember before Saban got there,
Yeah.
Alabama went through a pretty dry spell for a long time. USC has, of course, Miami. We broke them. Yeah. They've been there as well.
LSU's been up down, like
every
Oklahoma.
program.
Yeah, Texas.
Except for Ohio State. Oh. Ohio State's literally the definition of consistency. Yeah, 100%. Chris, you got another question, buddy? Chat, you got any more questions?
Well, first I've got to ask: should Xander feel lucky that his initials are not BC?
What?
You know, there's a obsession with Bobby Carpenter.
Oh my gosh, Chris, quit it. My wife loves Bobby Carpenter. So that's the joke.
All right, so real
she
quick.
married a lineman, not a linebacker.
I'm going to hop on over to the season that was 2002, obviously a magical season. Was there a point during that time that you and your teammates just knew this team isn't good? This is a championship team. What was it, a practice? Was it a moment in a particular game?
This is the exact same question Andre Green's got, the exact one.
I've actually gotten that question before, and I don't think there was a specific like a moment. I think it was just kind of we just kept grinding. We kind of kept just taking things week by week. We didn't really look to the future. We didn't overlook teams. I know we had like the Michigan clock up in the facility, and we were playing other teams before them, but it wasn't like, oh, we're trying to get to Michigan. Like it was like, no, we got to handle business this week. We'll worry about next week. And I don't think there was a specific moment where it kind of all came together before the championship game started. Let me say it that way. I just think it was just kind of, time after time, we just kind of kept, the ball kept falling our way, and, we kept grinding and, doing the little things. And I think it just kind of, we got to the end of the season and it was like, holy crap, if we beat Michigan, like we're undefeated and we're probably going to the Fiesta Bowl to play for a national championship. So I don't think there was one specific moment or game or anything like that where it kind of hit us that we're pretty damn good and we're going to be national champs. Now, once we got to the game, that's a different story. But I think early in that game, I had a feeling that it was happening.
We had Sean Lane on the other day, or no? Who did we have on 2 weeks ago, Chris? Not Sean Lane. Jamal Luke. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jamal. And he brought up a story from the championship game that I was not aware of. I don't know how I missed this, but apparently some of the players got a flyer that they brought back to the locker room where Miami was like had planned their national championship party.
The back-to-back party.
Oh boy, yeah. Tell us that story.
Yeah, it was. They had planned it in Arizona. It was, and they had started advertising. It was their party to celebrate their back-to-back national championships. And yeah, that kind of fired us all up. And, we obviously knew that the task was going to be difficult, but yeah, I do remember seeing those flyers and different things. And I know, and, you kind of asked that question. And now that I think about it, there was a moment before that game started that I think it hit me that we were going to be national champions. And so I'm very ritual when I played. Like everything was always the same. Like I packed my bag the same. I always dressed the same. Like I always had the same routine. Like I never deviated from anything. And I remember sitting in my room, packing my bag to go to the stadium for that game that day. And I got everything in my bag. It was a black duffel bag. And I kind of stood back and I was like, damn. And my roommate, who was Fred Puggich, so Coach Puggich's son, he was a linebacker. He goes, "What's wrong?" I go, "I don't have room for my helmet." And he was like, "What do you mean?" I go, "Well, when we win this championship, I'm taking my helmet home." And I had to repack my bag. So I guess to answer, there was a moment because that was the only time I deviated from my pregame or game day ritual, because I knew that when we won that game, that helmet was coming home with me, and it was not going
awesome.
back with the team and the facilities. And because if it did, I was never going to get that helmet back. So I had to make room. I had to make sure I had room in my bag for that helmet at the end of the game.
You got that helmet, Tim?
I do. It's tucked away in a box in my basement.
Oh, you can't tuck that thing away. You gotta. That.
My jersey's tucked down there. It's all framed. It's really nice. It's just wrapped up in a blanket down in my basement.
All right, we got 2 more questions in the chat. Chris, get your last question ready. Tim, I love this question because it's my favorite play in Ohio State history. Tim, if you can remember, what went through your mind when the Holy Buckeye play versus Purdue happened?
Craig, you're a dumb son of a bitch. I'm being dead serious. I was pissed. I was for a hot second. Well, because here's the thing: if you watch because it was like 4th and 1.
Yeah.
If you watch the replay, when he stepped up to the left,
right,
he ran and got the first down.
Oh, but wasn't there a drag route from a tight end too?
Yeah, Ben.
Yeah.
And but I'm because I was watching it up on the big board or whatever, the big screen or whatever at the stadium, and because I was sitting on the bench. And when I saw that opening, I'm like, oh, he's going to run for it and pick up the first down. And then I just saw that arm come back, and I was like, you son of a. And then Michael caught it, and obviously everything was good after that. But there for like a hot second, I was pissed. I'm like, dude, just get the first down. Like, what are you doing? And then Jenkins caught the ball, and we won. And it was all right. That's cool. That works out.
I love that play. I probably watch that play at least once a month.
And, it was a great play.
Yeah. And then, the call, it was great. All right, Speedman, good to see you tonight, buddy. $4.99 super chat. What's your interpretation of the level of play between high school, college, and the NFL? Nice having you on the show, brother. OH, go Bucks.
People don't understand. It's not just the level of play. Like, that's obviously a factor, but I don't think you kind of mentioned it earlier when you got to see Big Daddy. I think that when I talk to people, like even in here, so I live in Stark County now, and Stark County, for anybody that doesn't know, is very big with football. Like the NFL Hall of Fame is literally less than 10 minutes from my house. And we've got the Massillon Tigers are here. Like, there's a lot of great football here. And I'll have people all the time be like, oh yeah, he's probably going to go D1 as a running back. You serious? Nugent was bigger than that kid is. Like, what are you talking about? Like, he's the size of a place kicker at that level. And I don't think people get, like, just how big and how fast that the guy had somebody tell me with one of the kids, and this was years ago from our high school, and he was a Mr. Football, like, or Mr. Ohio or whatever it is in high school football. And they're like, yeah, he's probably going to go D1. I go, he's way too slow. They're like, what do you mean? He runs like a 4.5. I said, yeah, so do 250-pound linebackers too. And that kid's 150 pounds. Like, no, he's not. Like, you don't – it's just – so the level of play it is ridiculous of how athletic those guys are. And I know when you watch them on TV, they don't seem that big. Trust me, you'd be shocked if you saw Jeremiah Smith in person. You'd be shocked at what that kid looks like. Even though he's an 18 or 19-year-old, like, it's the physical specimens from like that high school to college. And then when you go from college to the NFL, people don't understand how small that funnel really, really gets. And I always give people the comparison of, there's 32 NFL teams. All of them, if they start 2 defensive tackles, that's 64 people in the world that start at defensive tackle in the NFL. 64. In the NFL or in college, you've got 120 some odd teams or whatever it is now that all have 2 guys starting. You've got 240 or 50, whatever the number is. and you're funneling that down. And some of those 62 that start are solidified starters, your Aaron Donalds and those types of players. So you really only are picking up 30, 40 guys from college football to go play a position. And for example, at the defensive tackle position from college football where there's 250 starters. Like, it's just the funnel is so incredibly small that the littlest things make a huge difference. And I know, being in Ohio, I hear it all the time. Oh, the Cleveland Browns suck. As a team with a record, yes, maybe they do. But if you step on the field with those guys, they're all pretty goddamn good football players. Their techniques are really good. Individually, they're great football players. They may not put it together as a team, to win games and things like that. That I understand. But if you're playing at that level, you are a good player. You're fast, you're strong, you're quick, you can move. I was 310, 315 pounds, and I was running a 4.7, 4.8 as my 40 when I was coming out of college. Like, there's not many. Now that's a pretty common thing, but back then, a 300 pounder running under 5 was kind of a freakish thing. So there is a huge gap or an adjustment between that high school, college, and NFL level. And I think it's more the physical stuff from the high school to the college, if that makes sense. And then when you go from the college, because going from college to the NFL, like, you're not going to see much of a difference in size. But the techniques are significantly better. The guys, they're never off. Their hands are always in the right place. They're running the right routes. They're doing everything perfect. But that's obviously why they're playing at that level.
Here's your final question, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to touch on that, let me tell you, the one that surprised me was the first time I ever met Beanie Wells. Yeah. And I thought, this guy's a running back?
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. And you don't, until you meet these guys, like, you see them on TV and they're like, oh, they're not that big. Beanie Wells was what, 230, 220?
Oh, easy.
Something like that, with that speed and that quickness. And you see that and you're like, gee, and that would have been, in most people that are on this chat or watching right now, 220 or 30 pounds was probably one of the biggest guys on their high school football team. And those were linemen.
Yeah.
And this is a guy running the ball. It's.
All right. I got to ask, Tim, as a defensive specialist, which you were, best defensive play in Ohio State history, was it the 85-yard scoop and score, or was it Maurice Corrett stripping Sean Taylor?
Well, that's a trick question. I'm going to say the strip stack return for a touchdown, because that was the only defensive play. Maurice Corrett was an offensive play that changed in the midst to kind of a defensive play and then went back to offense. So that's how I'm going to get around answering that question.
Okay, sounds good.
Last question from the chat comes from Sean. Tim, what's the most you ever bench pressed?
The peak I had, which was in the NFL when I was with Buffalo, and we didn't put, mind you, this number is based on charts. Like, we didn't put this kind of weight on a bar. But I probably peaked out at about the 620 to 630 range.
Holy.
But listen, people ask it because they'll ask, like, what'd you squat and all this kind of stuff. And, like, yes, the numbers are freakishly high. But here's what you got to understand. When you are at that level, when you're playing college at that level, or you're playing in the NFL, my job was to wake up and go to work and work out every day. Like, that's, people that are on here that are listening, they're going to wake up tomorrow, they're going to go to their jobs, whatever it is, and they're going to sit at an office desk all day for 8 hours. Well, my job was to go into a weight room and throw weights around for 8 hours. Like, that's what I did all off season. Like, every day for 6-8 hours a day, I was in a weight room lifting, like, doing things to make myself get stronger. And if you have all day like that, you should be able to put up those types of numbers at least. Sometimes people, that kind of makes sense, because I'm not, most people, they're like, oh, I just go to the gym for like an hour. Well, I'm not working. an hour is my warm up. That's just getting my body ready to go to actually do the workout. So yes, it was a lot of weight. I mean, I could squat a small house too, but again, it was, that's 5-6 days in the weight room at 6-8 hours a session.
All right. So, final question tonight. I want to end on a funny note, man.
I haven't given you any already.
Well, I mean, we've talked about the nipple rings and Saved by the Bell. Give me the funniest locker room story you can give me that you're allowed to share.
Oh goodness! I'll tell you. Here's one I tell my kids at school, so it's clean. So he's no longer with us, but for true Buckeye fans, they'll know the name Ivan Douglas.
Oh yeah.
All right. So I grew up in a small country farm town in northern Ohio. We were a country school, very rural. I go to college, and Big Ivan is a large black man. I mean, he's 6'6", well over 300 pounds. I mean, he was bigger than me. And he was number 53. I was number 54. And it was like one of our first days there when I was a freshman. He was a year older than me. And so we're sitting there, and we're kind of getting to know each other, and we're talking, and he keeps talking. And I'm like, I didn't understand anything he was saying. Like, he was speaking in all this slang. And I legit was like, I kind of looked at him funny. And Ivan leans back in his locker, shirtless, doesn't have a shirt on, by the way. He looks at me, kind of lifts his head, kind of looks down at me, goes, Timmy, you don't have any idea what I'm talking about, do you? And I said, no, Ivan. I said, I don't. Like, I don't like, you said you'd be back in a minute, but like, you didn't mean a minute. Like, you were gone. Like, there was all these things. And I had a very difficult time adjusting. So Ivan took me to essentially urban school for the rest of camp. And we would literally take 5 or 10 minutes while we were getting ready for, practice or whatever. And he would give me like slang phrases. Like, I didn't know that cold really meant good. What? Like that, like that's just stuff that I didn't hear in my hometown. And he helped me out. So like when people would talk, like I actually understood like what was kind of going on, what people were saying. And yeah, we did that for probably about a month. And he would like give me like a phrase, and it's like, okay, this is what it means. Okay, now it was like school. Hey, use it in a sentence. Okay, we're talking. I want you to try to use it. And he would, and we probably 5 to 10 minutes every day for probably a month and a half. He kind of took me to school, and it was very eye opening. I learned a lot. I mean, there's other stories I could say, but they're probably really not clean per se.
You know what? You know what's funny, Tim, is you talk about that, and I actually work in elementary education, and let me tell you, I had a 3rd grade class educate me this past year on what all the slang terms mean.
Yeah,
that was both enlightening and frightening.
Yeah, because it stemmed from because he had said something to me, and he was like, hey, you're going to be here for a minute. And I was getting ready to leave, and I'm like, yeah, I'll be here for like another minute or two. He was like, no, are you going to be here for a minute? And I was like, Ivan, like, yeah, I'm about done getting dressed. Like, I'm going to be leaving in like a minute or two, so I'll be here for a minute. He goes, no, man, are you going to be around for a while? I was like, well, no, I'm getting ready to leave in a minute. Like, that's what you asked. He was like, no, that's not what it means. It means, are you going to be around? And, like, so, and that's kind of where like the whole like, because it was just like, you don't get it. And I'm like, no, I don't, Ivan. Like, you asked me like a direct question. Are you going to be here for a minute? I took it. Are you going to be here for a minute? Like,
right.
Why would I take it as anything other than that? And so it was, we talk about the mental toughness and stuff. Well, that was one thing I was not prepared for when I went to college, was just understanding like coming from a small farm town and like all these guys and all these different like backgrounds and stuff. Like, I don't remember his first name. We had a DB. You guys might remember. His last name was Ross. He was a couple years. What?
Derek
Ross. That might have been him. I remember he lifted his shirt and showed me where he got stabbed one time. And I was like, what? I'm like, are you serious? He goes, oh yeah, I grew up in the hood. It was bad. It was dangerous. I'm like, and I'm like an 18-year-old freshman from like a farm town. I'm like, seriously? Like that wasn't an accidental, like, oh, you slipped doing something on the farm and like hit your, like, no, somebody tried to stab me. I'm like, what in the hell? Like who, like, what is this? So it, luckily I had big Ivan, big eye that kind of took me under his wing and guided me a little bit.
I like to see Big Ivan taking little 18-year-old Tim to where he grew up, and
I tell you, I'd have been lost without that guy. I tell you that.
oh, it's been a great night, everybody. We appreciate everybody in the chat. It's been a good show. Tim, thank you so much for coming on tonight, man, and reminiscing your college career with us and talking wrestling, uh, talking defensive line, talking Buckeyes. It's been a great show. Chris, you got your call-in show tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Eastern. Don't miss that, everybody. And again, thank you so much for everybody who came. Tim,
Did my screen just freeze up?
Nope, I think we lost Eric, guys. Did we lose Eric?
Okay.
I think we lost Eric, Tim. So,
Okay.
hey, I'm going to say thank you again for coming on with us tonight. And, guys, I'm going to go ahead and take this thing home because I think we've lost our boy.
All right. Well, hey, guys, appreciate you guys having me. We had a great time.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. And, guys, as always, tune in for that call-in show on Monday night. Don't forget the Buckeye Lounge on Tuesday. And then coming up Thursday, Eric has his call-in show this week. So for Eric, myself, and Mr. Tim Anderson, I want to thank you for watching. As always, go Bucks.